In 2020, it wasn't rice that disappeared first. It wasn't water. Those got the headlines, but they weren't the first to go. The items that actually vanished within the first 72 hours were quiet, specific, and completely off most people's radar. The same supply pressure is building right now, and July is historically one of the worst months for these particular categories. Today I'm going through 10 items that are either already moving on price or heading for shelf gaps before August. All verified at Walmart, all under $10 each. If you've built your foundation already, these are the gaps most preppers don't know they have. 10. Instant coffee. At Walmart right now, a Folgers instant coffee jar, 8 ounces, runs $4.97. That's about 56 cups of coffee for $5. Here's why this matters beyond morale. Caffeine dependency is physiological, not psychological. Regular coffee drinkers who go without caffeine for 24 to 48 hours experience headache onset, reduced concentration, and impaired reaction time. In a grid down or crisis scenario, that's not a comfort problem, it's a functional problem. Instant coffee also doesn't require a coffee maker, a filter, or precise temperature. Boiling water, instant coffee, done. And among barter items in documented crisis situations, coffee and cigarettes historically rank above almost everything else. Stock 3 jars minimum. 9. Powdered milk. Great value powdered milk. 25.6 ounces, $8.97. Most people put this in the coffee creamer substitute category and stop thinking about it. That's the wrong frame. 1 tablespoon of powdered milk contains 25 calories and 1.3 grams of protein. A single 25.6 ounce canister makes approximately 23 quarts of liquid milk. Protein is the hardest macronutrient to maintain in an emergency pantry at meaningful levels. Most prepper pantries are carbohydrate heavy and protein light. Powdered milk is one of the cheapest protein sources on any shelf. It reconstitutes in cold or hot water, and it adds calorie density to rice, oats, and soups without changing the texture dramatically. Shelf life properly sealed. 2 to 10 years. 8. Vegetable oil. Great value vegetable oil, 48 ounces, $4.97. Fat is the most calorie-dense macronutrient at 9 calories per gram, more than double protein or carbohydrates. The majority of emergency pantries are calorie deficient specifically because they're fat deficient. You can have 200 cans of vegetables and still be running a severe calorie deficit. 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil added to a bowl of rice and beans increases the calorie count by 240 calories and makes the meal genuinely filling. Oil also has secondary uses that most prepper content skips. Olive oil specifically burns in a lamp wick as a clean, non-toxic fuel source. Vegetable oil works for rust prevention on metal tools, and it extends the palatability window of dry rations significantly. This is one of the cheapest calorie per dollar purchases on any shelf. But here's where it gets specific. The next item is the one I see missing from almost every stockpile I've ever reviewed, and it's the one that has the most documented secondary uses in a real emergency. 7. White vinegar. Great value white vinegar, 1 gallon, $3.48. Distilled white vinegar is one of those items that shows up in emergency preparedness guides for medical professionals and almost never in consumer prepper content. The reason it belongs in your pantry has nothing to do with salad dressing. First, antimicrobial surface cleaning. Undiluted white vinegar kills a broad spectrum of bacteria and mold on contact, not as effectively as bleach, but without bleach's shelf stability problems. Second, food preservation. Vinegar-based pickling extends the shelf life of fresh produce for weeks without refrigeration. Third, water line cleaning in storage containers. Fourth, it reduces the bitter taste of low-quality or heavily treated water, which matters when your only water source is a treatment tank. 1 gallon at $3.48 with effectively no expiration date. There's no reason not to have 2 gallons. 6. Baking soda. Arm & Hammer baking soda, 8 pounds, $6.97. At full price, most people buy the small box for $1.12 and think nothing of it. The 8-pound bag is the prepper purchase because it covers 3 separate use categories. In cooking, leavening agent for cornbread, biscuits, and flatbread when you have no yeast and no commercial baking powder. In medical, baking soda is an effective antacid. 1/2 teaspoon in water relieves heartburn and mild indigestion. This matters because diet disruption during a crisis commonly causes digestive issues. In hygiene, baking soda mixed with coconut oil or water functions as a toothpaste substitute. It also deodorizes wounds and skin under conditions where soap and water are limited. 8 pounds at $6.97 lasts a household of 4, roughly 5 to 7 years across all 3 uses. The next 3, this is where the price movement is actually happening. These are the items where the numbers have been shifting. 5. Soy sauce. Kikkoman soy sauce, 10 ounces, $2.98. Here's the hidden angle nobody in this niche covers. Soy sauce is a flavor concentrate that turns otherwise inedible emergency food into actual meals. Rice and beans on day 14 of a crisis taste like cardboard. Rice and beans with soy sauce, a bouillon cube, and some dried garlic taste like food. That distinction matters more than most people realize. Palate fatigue, the documented phenomenon where people stop eating adequate calories because their food has become unbearable, is a real clinical risk in extended food emergencies. Soy sauce is also a calorie source, roughly 10 calories per tablespoon, with meaningful sodium for electrolyte balance. And as an imported product subject to tariff exposure, it's one of the categories where price movement happens fast. 4. Cornmeal. Great value yellow cornmeal, 5 pounds, $2.78. This is the most underrated item in any prepper pantry. 5 pounds of cornmeal contains approximately 8,000 calories. At $2.78, that's roughly 35 cents per 1,000 calories. One of the best calorie per dollar ratios of anything on a shelf. It mixes with water to produce cornbread, cornmeal porridge, polenta, Johnny cakes, and simple flatbread. It requires no eggs, no milk, minimal additional ingredients. Shelf life sealed in an airtight container, 1 to 2 years at room temperature, 5+ years in Mylar. It appears in almost no prepper video in this niche despite being a staple of every documented historical food crisis from the Depression through modern disaster relief operations. 5 pounds, $2.78. There's no reason this isn't in every pantry. 3. Bouillon cubes. Nar chicken bouillon, 25 count, $3.78. 25 cubes. Each cube flavors 1 quart of water into broth. That's 25 separate meals or soups from a $3.78 purchase. I mentioned palate fatigue in item 5. Bouillon is the single cheapest solution to that problem. It also adds sodium and a small amount of fat to otherwise mineral-deficient emergency cooking water. The secondary use. A single cube dissolved in hot water is a functional electrolyte replacement for someone experiencing mild dehydration or heat stress. Sodium, potassium, and trace minerals in a warm liquid. Not a medical treatment, but meaningfully better than plain water in those conditions. 2. Canned salmon. Great value pink salmon, 14.75 ounces, $3.68. Everyone stockpiles canned tuna. Everyone stockpiles canned chicken. Almost nobody stockpiles canned salmon, which is a mistake for one specific reason: omega-3 fatty acid content. Canned salmon contains 3 times the omega-3 of equivalent canned tuna. This matters in an extended crisis because omega-3 deficiency over a period of weeks causes measurable cognitive decline, mood deterioration, and joint inflammation, exactly the conditions you can't afford when you need to be sharp and functional. Canned salmon is also fully cooked, fully shelf-stable, and requires no preparation beyond opening the can. At $3.68 for nearly 15 ounces of high-protein, high-fat protein, it outperforms tuna on almost every nutritional metric. It just doesn't get mentioned because it's not the default. 1. Lard. Armor Pure Lard, 4 pounds, $5.47. This is the item that gets the most skeptical reaction, and the one that changes the most minds once people actually look at the numbers. 4 pounds of pure rendered animal fat. Calorie density, approximately 3,500 calories per pound. That's 14,000 calories in a single $5.47 purchase. Stored in a cool, dark location in an airtight container, lard keeps for 6 months at room temperature and 12+ months in a refrigerator or cellar. In a crisis scenario with no refrigeration, it keeps several months sealed. Depression-era families considered lard a core pantry staple, not an ingredient, a resource. It was used for cooking at high heat, preserving meat by packing it in fat, as a skin protectant against cold, and as a base for homemade soap. It disappeared from most supermarkets for 30 years and came back in the early 2020s. It's currently sitting on a shelf at Walmart for $5.47. Most people walk past it without recognizing what it is. Total cost across all 10 items, approximately $48.05 at current Walmart prices. That's not a complete stockpile. It's the layer that fills the gaps in an otherwise solid foundation. The calorie density, the flavor preservation, the secondary use cases that don't show up in standard prepper lists. The complete shopping list with current prices and quantities is linked in the description. If you've watched the calorie math video we published a few weeks ago, you already understand why calorie density matters more than item count. These 10 items score high on both. Next video, we're going through the 8 rotation mistakes that are quietly expiring the stockpile you've already built. That's already live. Link is below.